Hello and welcome to The World Today. This program is here to discuss topics that are affecting society globally today. Ours is to create a platform where people can share the different ideas and perspectives in order that we can enhance peace, justice, and positive growth. Our topic today is racial equality. Well, humanity has really worked so hard to fight against racial integration, especially creating bodies and movements who come together to cut down all the barriers that are enveloping segregation and discrimination. Well, when we look at the most multiracial country, United States of America, we see that there is still so much that is going on when it comes to racial equality. There seems to be so much unrest, and many more organizations are coming up, such as the Black Lives Matter, which is an organization that has just been set up because there are so many killings because of the racial inequality. As much as we've progressed so much as humanity, there are still those with mindsets that really classify man in accordance to skin tone, nationality, and culture. And this is really bringing down humanity and bringing down people's values such that they don't have access to the basic human rights and resources, and stealing people's purposes and destiny because of this. So today we want to discuss this, especially when you look at the world today, when there is so much migration. So different cultures and different races are beginning to come together. And if we do not start to address this and tackle it head on, it's going to become such a very advanced problem in society. So today we're here and we shall talk more about it. I have a guest and I have different people who I have asked to share their opinions. Maybe we start off with 3 questions. Is there racial equality or inequality? And if there is racial inequality, what factors bring about this inequality? And then finally, what can be done to bring racial equality? Welcome.
Racial equality. What does that mean exactly? I mean, does it mean that we're both equal in life? Do we have the same equal access to wealth, life, and the pursuit of happiness? Probably not if you look at America today. Even though it is better than it was when I was growing up, say in the 70s and the 60s, it still has a long, long, long way to go, because we don't have equal access to wealth. We don't have equal access to jobs or housing or education or any of the things that you would think should come naturally as a citizen of the United States. It does not. Because black people have proven that they are capable of doing the job, even holding the most highest office in the United States, which is president. He was elected by the majority. And the majority knows that we are capable of doing the job. So why are we being kept out? Why is the racial inequality still in America, even after a black president? It's because of not only race, but wealth. Wealth is the dominating factor. How do you keep the wealth within your own majority of white people? You don't let the other people in who can do the job. And I think there's a fear. There's a fear that black people may, once they're allowed to have these jobs, to take over, to be the dominating race, you might say, and then it's a shift. And they want to keep that status quo as it is. So we're kept out of the most basic things, like I was saying, in education. And that's why I don't think it will change. Unless, of course, people began to want to share, which is something that I have not seen happen. It's not going to happen.
Welcome back to The World Today. And today's topic, as introduced earlier, is racial equality. And today in the studio, we have a guest, an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, David Samuyua. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming here today.
No problem, my pleasure.
Yeah, so the video we just watched where Sandy was talking about racial equality.
Yes.
And she talked about it as if it was like the main focus is a scramble for wealth.
Okay.
Do you agree with that?
Scramble for wealth between...
Yeah, between the different races. That's why.
I mean, yeah, in a sense. I mean, in today's climate of capitalism, there is this need to have as much as you want to have, by any means necessary, black or white. But I think that when we talk about the subject of racial equality, you have to find out why does that question first exist. So there must be a thought about, okay, if there's a need for racial equality, then there must be racial inferiority and racial superiority before you can ask the question, why is there a need for racial equality? So if it's a question about wealth, then I think that needs to be investigated as to why there isn't a fair distribution of wealth. But then again, it still comes back to the question of, okay, if that's the case, then are black people at the bottom of the racial equation and are white people at the top, which then is an inferiority, superiority system, which now doesn't lead to racial equality. Now,
when you talk about black people, because I heard you mention it, so you've grown up in the UK.
Yep.
Where you probably have been a racial minority or an ethnic minority in the UK.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Like, how was it for you when you were growing up?
Well, I never really understood that there was a racial question until maybe I was about 11 or 12, to my early teenage years.
Yeah.
It didn't really come into our minds until that point, basically. I mean, no one is born a racist. It's something that you are educated into by the media, by the social system, by parents, what have you. So about the age of 11, 12, 13, when I started secondary school, then I started to realize there was a difference in how I was treated or how black people were treated compared to white people, basically. So that's when I first started to notice that there's this question, okay, why am I treated differently? Why am I treated worse? Why are we as black people treated worse than what the white people are treated, basically?
So you felt inferior, or you were treated as
You were treated as an inferiority, as an inferior race. I didn't feel that way because I had strong parental guidance, and obviously they told me how good I was. But of course, not all black people have that strong parentage or that strong support system around them, basically. So of course there is that question that people start to question, okay, well, am I worse? Are they better than me? So in terms of, yes, we are a racial minority, but that doesn't mean to say that we should feel obviously inferior to other races, basically, or other ethnic groups.
But how were you exposed to it exactly? At what point did you realize?
That's in secondary school.
In secondary
school, yes. I mean,
was it from the teachers or?
I mean, you have to understand that obviously UK is a very racial, diverse country, especially where I'm born and raised in London, which is obviously very diverse in terms of racial ethnicity. So therefore, for example, my next door neighbour on the left side will be a white Irish family. On the right side, will be an Asian family. Across the road, you've got a Spanish family, and then you have, African family, Caribbean family, Indian family. So you have all this mixture of cultures and religion and ethnic groups, basically, all in one melting pot. So you grew up with that. So we didn't become aware, like I said, about the differences until we started secondary school. They were, okay, we're treated differently. Why is that question? And then, of course, it comes from the school, because in the school system, you're understanding, a minute, there's something different into how I'm treated compared to the other ethnic groups. So that's when we started to realize, okay, why? We started to ask the question, why? Some people will just take it, okay, that's how it is.
Yeah.
But others ask questions as to why are we treated differently, and is he better than me, and these questions come up in your head and you start to question all the time. What's going on? What's going on, basically, yeah.
So is it about being treated differently, or did this maybe make you get denied different resources, or?
No, because I mean, you have social integration, okay? So in the 60s, for example, Sandy, who you spoke to previously on the video, she was probably raised at a time when there was civil rights movements in the USA, okay? So there was a fight for social integration, okay? We want access to the same schools, access to eat in the same restaurants, the same hotels. So there was this social segregation. So they fought for social integration. We have that now. We have that. I could go to the same school as white kids. I can live in the same neighborhood as white kids. I can eat in the same restaurant as as long as I have the money to pay and I book in time, I can go there. So there's no discrimination as to, okay, I can't have the same access to certain resources as what other ethnic groups can. But at the same time, the question is, okay, when I do have those access, am I still, as a black person, am I still treated equally? Am I given the quality that I believe I should get?
And are you?
No. No, I mean, no. That's what I'm talking about. We don't have that. We have social integration, basically, but we don't have racial equality. So we are allowed to have access to certain resources, but yes, when we have them, do we get out from them the same, are we allowed to use it in the same way as what white people are, for example?
What do you think is the underlying factor for this inequality?
Sandy touched on fear. I mean, there is definitely that aspect of it, but also the, how can you say? We are not educated into what our history is. So we as a black race, we have succumbed to what we are being told by the white supremacy, so you could say, standard of education. They dictate to us as to what we study, in Europe now, what we learn, what history is, and we feed into that. So you're not taught in school about all the great things that black people have done over the last 300, 400, 500 years. We're not taught that. You have to go and find it out for yourself. You're taught about Thomas Edison, you're taught about Louis Pasteur, you're taught about Charles Darwin, you're taught about who was Joseph Lister, you're taught about all the guys who have made exploits in medicine, science. You're taught about all these famous white people that made significant contribution to how we live today. We're not taught about the black people that made equal, if not more, contribution to how we live today. These are like eradicated from our education system. So you grow up, if you don't investigate for yourself, with an inferiority complex because, okay, everything around you now is done by white people. So what have we done? What are our contribution to today's planet or today's way of living? We don't have it. So even though it's all out there to get, we're not taught that from a young age. So you're growing up with this. So unless you research it for yourself and study it for yourself, we're not taught these things. We're not taught that, for example, you have Thomas Edison. We're not taught about how he was backed up by two black people, Lewis Latimer and Granville T. Woods. These guys helped him a lot. In fact, they called Granville T. Woods the Black Edison because of his contribution to Edison's work. You've probably heard of Alexander Graham Bell, who made the telephone, but they don't talk about the contribution that Granville T. Woods made to that. So to both Thomas Edison's work and Alexander Graham Bell's work, this one black guy made a massive contribution to both of them. We're not taught that.
No.
We're not taught about how two of the greatest safety elements today, the traffic lights and the gas mark, was invented by a black guy, Garrett Morgan. We're not taught that. So think of how many lives the traffic lights have saved. Think how many lives the gas mark has saved. But we're not taught about these things. These things are just not mentioned at all. So all these contributions, or for example, Benjamin Banneker, who was as significant as Galileo in terms of astronomy. We're not taught about these things. It's eradicated. So unless you study the history of what our people have done, I say black people have done, we don't get any information from the school. Even religion teaches us that God is white. Jesus is the Son of God. And everywhere you go, you see Jesus painted as a white guy with blonde hair and blue eyes. So if Jesus is the Son of God, then God must be white. So if God is white, Jesus is white, the angels are white. Where is that? So what we're saying that white people or the white race is more superior because God is white. God is white and God made the planet according to the religious way of looking at things. And Jesus is the Son of God and he's also white. How that can be so indoctrinated into the system of today, I don't know, because anybody with a brain knows, okay, if Jesus is white in the Bible itself, it says that when Jesus was born and King Herod, to tell the biblical story, King Herod came to kill Jesus because he was afraid, because there were three wise men called him the future king, the Messiah. So he sent people to kill Jesus. What did his parents do? They hid him in the land of Kemet, which means the land of the blacks. How can you take a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid and hide him in a place? It doesn't make, and this is in the Bible itself. But in that case, why is it still spread out all over the place? Jesus is white on all the pictures in the churches. He's white with blonde hair and blue eyes.
So what you're saying is that if you research, you can find evidence. But you're saying that maybe it's the white man who's just picked out the white stories just to make the
Not picked
world.
out, changed them. Picked out and changed them and eradicated. There's certain things that you just can't just pick out and you just change it.
Yeah, so both.
Both,
Yeah.
just to completely eradicate the contribution of the black race to the world. So to obviously put into our minds that we are inferior, that white people are better than what we are. So we should always follow what they say. We don't study ourselves. We're not given the tools to study ourselves. We're given what they give us, the books to read, the information that they put out, we must read. So we're brought up like that, in that system from school. Those of us who are obviously born in Europe, like I was, you're brought up in that system. So until you start to dig for yourself and find, okay, well, actually, who am I actually? What is my, what have my race done? Is this true? Unless you have that type of inquisitive curiosity, you settle for what you're told. And that's what you believe, then you grow up that way. And then you start to, okay, believe that you are inferior and the white people are better. Now, just to put one thing straight, I'm not for black supremacy.
No.
I'm as much against black supremacy as what I am against white supremacy.
I was just about to ask you that.
I don't believe in that at all. I'm against both. So if the white race was treated the way the black race was treated, I'll be sitting here talking for equality with what the white race having the same privileges that the black race does. It just happen to be black and my people happen to be treated worse. That's why I sit here talking for black people, basically. So, in fact, 25% of my family is white, my own flesh and blood. So therefore, I'm not for black supremacy. I'm not a black racist. There are many of them out there, and I'm against them as much as what I am against white races. Okay, I'm for racial equality, the balance of power, the balance of wealth, the balance of the resources being distributed equally, and everyone given equal opportunities. We have it on paper, yes, equal opportunities, but in reality, it doesn't exist.
But when you talk about equal opportunities, you
Yes.
said that there's already that because there's integration.
There's an integration.
Yeah, there's integration.
Yes.
So that means anyone can be anywhere doing anything. It's just that you're treated differently. But that's the case in different continents, in different countries.
How do you mean now?
That's not, I mean, maybe in Europe you get
Yes.
equal access to things. But when you see Sandy's perspective, which is America, it's not the case. Because there are people who cannot go to different schools just because they're a certain color or
Yes,
they're
but
from a certain culture, which we can still say there's integration.
Yes.
But integration and equality are kind of also almost the same.
If you look at it from that perspective, what you're saying is that there is social integration. Yes, we are allowed access to the same resources. We're allowed access. That doesn't mean to say we get access.
Right.
We are allowed equal opportunities. It doesn't mean to say we get equal opportunities. No one can discriminate against you, because then you can take them to court and you can sue. So of course it's not an outward thing, like before, no colours. It's plain, you are not welcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that sign is taken down, but if you go in there, the service you will get will be less than what the white person will get, because that is still in someone's mind. You are inferior. We only take the sign down because the law said so, not because we want to. So there is that on paper, but in reality, it doesn't exist. And we always talk about, yeah, you have a few percentage, maybe 1% of black people that are very successful. And these are always the ones that people throw at us. Yeah, well, look what they're doing.
Yeah.
But that's always been the case. Even in the days of slavery, you had 1% of black people that were very wealthy, who actually were able to use the system to their benefit. Just like now. In apartheid South Africa, you had black people very wealthy. It's a very small percentage.
How do they get wealthy? How do they get to that place?
That's a question that you have to ask those people. I mean, obviously they've seen how the system is, and maybe they connect with the white supremacy power that's in place and make a deal, or maybe they just go out there as entrepreneurs and do something great, like these inventors I told you about. These are all born in the 1800s. These were born during the time of slavery. They still made contributions. So of course, if they were creative, remember, your creativity will always be used. Will always be used by the powers in place until you are dispensable. Yes. So when you are indispensable, they will use and gather as much information, as much knowledge as possible. And when you are dispensable, you're out of the picture. That's why we don't talk about these guys anymore. Because now we have someone who has taken the knowledge of all these guys and used it and benefited from it. The rest of the, okay, you guys that helped, we don't talk about you. Okay, so there's always that question in place. There is equal opportunities on paper, but in reality it doesn't exist. We are not seen in society. Talking about the situation we are in now here in Sweden, for example. How many black policemen do you see? How many black doctors do you see? How many black lawyers do you see? How many black politicians do you see? How many black people do you see in middle management, let alone middle management? Forget about top level management, in echelons of power. You don't see them there.
So you're saying there's no inequality in Sweden?
There isn't. It doesn't exist.
All right.
People say, oh, but we're only 2% of the population, but 2% of the population in Africa is white. They control it. So 2% of the population is irrelevant. If I'm as good as you, or better, I deserve that job. I deserve that position. Forget about my 2%.
Yeah.
Am I capable of doing the job better than that guy, that candidate who's white? Yes, I should get the job. I should get the promotion. So it's not that. But where do you see black people working in Sweden? If you go to the taxi rank, you see us full there.
Or cleaning.
You go to the back of the hotels, you see us cleaning. So we are seen, but we are not seen. We are seen we're on the menial, the very low level jobs, the low wages, the low pay, where we're expected to stay, because that's our place. But you want to rise, there's something there that says, okay, am I good enough? It's in your head. Already, because you think, so, but I don't see anyone else here. I don't have any real role models here in Sweden, for example, who have risen up through the ranks. And everything around me is white dictated. I don't have, maybe it's not my place, I stay here. And that complex now is passed on to the next generation, until the next generation, until you break it. And that was the case with us when my parents came to the UK in the 60s. So they immigrated from Nigeria to London in the 60s. I'm born in the 70s. I'm the first generation. So they were already adults when they came. So they just stuck with the system.
Yeah.
Now, as I'm now getting more educated, now in the 80s, I started to ask questions. Hold on a minute, this is not fair. This isn't right. Why am I treated like this? So now I'm asking questions. Those questions prompt me to investigate as to what have my race done for this. Is it really true that we've done nothing? Because I don't see us anywhere. We're not in history books. We're not in education material. Why? We're not in any system in society. I don't see black police. I don't see black businessmen. I don't see black women doing great things. Why are we always suppressed down and oppressed? Why is that? So I ask questions and I investigate and I see, hold a minute, we did this, we did that. Why am I not taught this? And that prompts more questions. And at that time, we were raised upon a lot of what they called conscious rap and conscious hip hop. It's not like the gangster rap you see now. Just again, it's another thing we talk about later. Yeah. This was a conscious movement of black rappers, black hip hop stars, who are now spreading the messages of Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Medgar Evans, Muhammad Ali, Sam Cooke. Who else were they talking about? The Black Panthers, Bobby Seale, Nelson Mandela. You had all this coming up in the 80s as the struggle was now, the struggle for apartheid in South Africa. And also, of course, the movement that was started in the 60s by these guys in America was now, these guys who grew up on that fight, that struggle, were now starting to put it into music. And this was flooding into the UK. So now we're hearing groups like Public Enemy with a album cover that says it takes a nation of millions to hold us back. And you think, why? What's that about? Yeah. And you listen to the music. Now you're hearing all these stories about all the great things that we've done. And then they released another album that's called Fear of a Black Planet. You think, okay, what's the message in this? It was message music for black people to understand that we have made a significant contribution to how the world is today. And we have to use that to make the world a better place. So we don't have this struggle, white, black all the time and everything else in between. So right now we have white at the top, black at the bottom, and all the other ethnic groups in between. Now, I'm not talking about black at the top, white at the bottom, I'm talking about this equality. Yeah. So every race is productive. So you give us the opportunity, like Sandy said on the video, give us the opportunity, we will show you what we can do. We've done it. Anytime we have not been allowed, anytime we've opened the door into different sectors of society, we've risen to the top. Yeah. Whether it's arts and entertainment, whether it's business, whether it's sports, anywhere we have been knocking, and then had to push forward, we've excelled, we've risen to the top. So we have the capabilities, we have the qualities, we have the intelligence, we have the tools, but we have to keep forcing the door open. And of course, that shouldn't be the case. That shouldn't be the case, but it has to be the case. We're not given the chance. So what Sandy is saying, I agree with in theory, but it's also up to us.
So it's really up to you to get the education and to be able
because you're not getting it at school.
Yeah.
so don't rely on the system to do that for you. It hasn't done it as of yet. So and that needs to be in the ground.
So do you, now that you have all this education, has it changed your apart from having the access to all these resources, has it changed your perception and changed the, what do I want to say, the working of you, like being able to do stuff? Are you able just because now you're more educated?
Not because I'm more educated.
Are you treated differently now because you're more educated, or?
No.
Like with the education, what does that do? It empowers you to stop thinking inferior.
Yeah, I mean, education is I think I mentioned it before. I was talking to one of my colleagues the other day. I mean, the aim of education is to lead people out of ignorance, to give you more knowledge. So once you have more knowledge now, you're less ignorant. So the education is not just for black people. It's for everybody. If the white people understand what black people have done, they will not look down on us. The same way we look up to them based on what we have been taught by their system of their history. Now talk about our history. So you now look up to us. Then you bridge the gap because you understand, these guys have made massive amounts of contribution in every area. In fact, black people were the first people on the planet. So therefore, if we all know this, and we all know the contribution, we talk about these great leaders, Alexander the Great, but Shaka Zulu was just as great as Alexander the Great. But we're not taught about it as Shaka Zulu. We're not taught about him. We're not taught about, for example, literature. Take, for example, have you heard of a guy called, well, you heard of the Three Musketeers, the story of the Three Musketeers, the Count of Monte Cristo. This has been a film, one of the best-selling books, one of the best-selling films has been repeated over and over again so many times. Those two books are written by a black French guy. Now, his name is Alexandre Dumas. Now, of course, you think, okay, Dumas, a French guy. You don't think about the color, automatically he's white. He's not, he's black. But we're not taught that. You've got to research for yourself. So think of how many other pieces of literature that is out there that is written by a black person that we're not aware about. So when you start to educate everybody, the same way we learn about European history, we should learn about African history, European culture, African culture, okay? The white race, the black race. Then you start to bridge the gap. But if it's just one thing pumped into your head, bang, 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 then of course that stays here. You have to reprogram it. So everything's about programming. That's why television is very important. It's what it says itself.
All the programs.
You know, television, program. You're being programmed. Computer, program. Media, program. Radio, program. Everything's about programming your mind to think a certain way. That's why every media focus on black people, no, not say every, 90% of it is bad. Look at these programs, Scandal, Empire, Power, these are all black programs with black actors. There's not one good character in any of them, hardly. How do they show black men? Wife beaters, cheating on their wives, doing drug dealers, stealing, crime, killing, murdering, all the negative things you could think of is there. Black women, loud, aggressive, fighting, swearing, cussing, cursing. That now is programming in everyone's head. That's how black people are. So black people are even suspicious of black people because they've been programmed with the same information. They see the same thing. So, oh, that's how black people are. Yeah, so now I want to talk with my black friend, but hey, he's probably or she's probably that way because of what I saw, what I've been programmed with inside here. So if black people think like that about each other, what about white people? Of course they think as well. That's why they're scared. Hey, let's not go in that neighborhood because there's black people there. Let's not go to that place because there's black people there. Let's not have black friends. Let's not bring them into our house because that's how they are. Image of white people, 90% of it is good. 10% of it is negative. So white people, they're good people. Yeah, they're great people. They're very nice people. Okay. Because you're being programmed into a certain way of how to think by media. That's why it's very important to be careful to get the balance. Of course there's black people like that. few percent.
And of course there's white people.
And of course there's white people who are also bad. It's a few percent. But you show the part about white that is 90% good, 10% negative. With the black is 90% negative, 10% good. So which one dominates? It's obvious.
Right.
It's obvious.
Wow.
So unless you get control of what is put out into people's brains, whether it's through media, internet, music. So how's the music? You listen to the music. Gangster rap. Okay, black people are gangsters. And this word of use, nigger, I never even heard it. It was never, because it's not an English thing. You know, you don't have black people in England going around calling each other nigger. You don't have black people in Africa calling each other nigger. That's in America. Because why? The word was used so often, it becomes ingrained in the psyche, in your psychology, in your mind, the word nigger. So now you refer to each other as niggers and try to make it look like it's good. But it's not good. It's a word that your ancestors fought for and died for. Because they're so against it. Now you use it as a term of endearment. You can use anything to call yourself. I think the guy called David Banner said the same thing. We could call ourselves anything. Why call yourself a nigger? Call yourself great, call yourself beautiful, call yourself the son of God. Why call yourself a nigger out of all things to call yourself? It doesn't make any sense because you're being programmed, being programmed into that. So unless we start to change these things within our own community and get strong within our own community, then of course we're going to be faced with what we face basically. Keep having to try to get white people to believe in us. We don't believe in ourselves yet. It must start with us first. We must get together like they did in the 60s. In the US, they got together to make a point. Now that point has been made. We are living off the fruits of that. So the fruits, but the movement has stopped. It's now, okay, now we're cool. We've got social integration. We're okay, we're allowed to do certain things. We have the resources, but we're not growing as a people.
No.
We haven't grown as a people at all. So yes, there's a few percent, 1% making it, but there's 99% not making it. So that's where we stand today.
Wow. Thank you so much. That was a lot. So viewers, you've heard, I told you, this is a platform where you can express yourself and hopefully come to a place where we can bring peace, justice, and just growth in, you know, society. We need to really come together and really make this place a better place to live in. So we'll be back in a few minutes. So I'll leave you with these videos, which you can watch and give you some more thoughts to what we're talking about, racial equality.
I came to Sweden as an 8-year-old with my family. We moved to the north of Sweden in a very small community where there was not many black people. At a very young age, I got to know that I wasn't the norm, that I wasn't viewed as beautiful because I had a darker complexion and I didn't have straight hair. I was bullied a lot. People would make monkey sounds as I was going to the dining hall at school, and they would say, oh, that's the way you talk. They would comment my skin color, you know, all these racial slurs. I had to live through it through my childhood. I believe that today it has started an awakening with the black community, especially with the youth, trying to recognize who they are as a person, starting to love those things that we have run away from for so long. If you have a big nose or you have a curly hair, these were things like you were not, everything that was viewed as black, you were not supposed to love. And we followed it for a very long time, but I am happy that today there is an awakening starting, but it's not enough. I believe for racial equality to come to part, we have to start with ourselves. We have to start respecting one another in our own ethnicity groups, because we do not do that. We don't respect our cultures. We do not respect people that we don't want to accept that people have different type of colors even in our own ethnicity group. I also believe that for us to have racial equality, it has to start in the house. It has to start at home with your own children. explaining to children in a very young age that there are people that are different than mom and dad. There are people who are darker in complexion. There are people that is lighter in complexion. There are people that have small nose. There are people that have big nose. I think everything starts at home. If you can talk to your children and teach them this kind of thing that is not dangerous, somebody that doesn't look like you, and we open up for other ethnicities, we open up, instead of getting afraid of other ethnic groups or getting afraid of other cultures, we should open up and get to know each other, get to teach each other about ourselves. I think only then can we start to work at a community where racial equality can occur.
I don't think there is total racial equality because we're way too focused on our differences for that to be possible. I think it's much better today than it was when I was younger, because I mean I was bullied in primary school and kindergarten for my skin color. When I was 8, I was told by some neighborhood kids that I couldn't play with them because I was brown, and I mean, the nearest adult went and yelled at them, but that stuff's always going to be in my subconscious. It leaves an impression, and you just need to encounter that stuff once to feel, on some level, to feel like an outsider for the rest of your life. I haven't ever encountered racism in terms of access to education. I can't speak about jobs because I've only ever had one, and I got that through my mother. I mean, I've heard about people not being called to interviews because they have foreign-sounding names, but I've never experienced that. As far as a solution goes, I think focus on what brings us together and what we have in common rather than our differences, because I'm of Indian origin, but that's not the only thing that defines me. I mean, I'm a person, I'm a brown person, I'm not a brown person. So if we focused on being people rather than labels, that would be a huge step. Also, I think we need to have open and honest discussions about whatever we want to talk about without the fear of being labeled a racist. I mean, you're allowed to have, you can even have an ignorant opinion without being a racist, hateful person. And we need to be able to talk about these things. There's a difference between the color of your skin and your culture. And we have to respect cultural differences, but that's not an excuse for turning a blind eye to homophobia and sexism. You know, so, yeah. I mean, if we did those things, I think that would be a huge step forward.
Welcome back, viewers. And today we're talking about racial equality. And in the studio, I have David Samayiwa, and we've talked a lot about education. And back to you. So I have some questions for you. What do you think are like more factors contributing to this racial inequality?
More factors?
Yeah.
Of course, education is definitely is the main one, basically.
Yeah.
Because that indoctrinates all the cultures into a pattern of thinking. So from that now, when the people have been educated and they go out to work, and let's say a white man or white woman reach to the echelons of power, so they are deciding who to recruit. Well, education has told them how black people are, how good or how bad black people are. And in most cases, it's not good, because that's what they said they have been indoctrinated in through the education and the programming that is available. So who will they employ? You're going to employ someone like you.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the education system that has now fed people up to a certain point, now they're released into society, into the working environment. Now they reach a position of power. Who are they going to employ? They're going to employ their own people. Who reaches the position of power? It's a white person. Who do they employ? White people. Who, for those good jobs, good jobs.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're not seen in the workforce. So that's another contributing factor that comes out from the root of education. Okay, the programming we talked about, unless we have positive images of black people doing positive things as role models, well then the programming that's around us is now going to be another factor. Then our own laziness as black people. We are being spoon-fed all the time by what we are taught without thinking, is there more to it than this? Why is there so much turmoil in Africa, for example? Why are we always fighting each other? Europe was as barbaric as Africa was in terms of its internal fighting. But they stopped because they realized that we're just hurting ourselves. So let's stop this, let's work together. So we have the European Union, we have the United Nations, as these white superpowers. They get together to try to make the world a better place. Now, Africa is the land of all the resources. In fact, Europe could not exist without Africa. All the resources that Europe needs, 90% of it comes from Africa. The oil, the minerals, the stuff for your cell phone, cobalt, the agriculture, the diamonds, the gold, okay, the water. All these material, all these resources, all this is in Africa. Europe could not survive. Is any bananas growing here? Any exotic fruits growing here? Does England have oil? Does Sweden have oil? No. So it's all imported in, mainly from Africa in terms of all the resources are there. It's the richest continent on the planet, yet it's the poorest. Why is that? How can the richest continent on the planet be the poorest continent on the planet? It doesn't equate. So something is wrong. So unless we now start to take ownership, by that I mean saying, okay, what are we responsible for? Are we responsible for our own mess? Are we responsible for our own status in society? So some people have decided to make inroads into that system. So, okay, I'm going to make a stand. Not a violent stand, because I'm against violence, a peaceful stand, to show what I'm good at, what I'm capable of doing, and I'm going to keep going. So we have to do the same thing. We have to follow those role models. Think how much time it took for those people I mentioned earlier, who strove after their invention in a system where there was slavery. We're not enslaved today.
No.
We don't have shackles and chains.
Wow.
We don't have, in terms of shackles and chains.
No, not physically. No.
So we don't have that shackles. We have opportunities that they didn't have at that time, in 200 years ago. We had the vote. They didn't have the vote in South Africa. So we have the vote. We have these, these resources today, these opportunities today. So we have to take advantage of that and show that we're going to make a positive contribution. But we continue doing what we're doing, fighting each other, East Africa against the West Africans. We don't get along, we don't agree, we do fight, we're abusive to each other, we use this word nigger against each other all the time. In fact, when I came to Sweden... I don't know
about in Africa talking about nigger, we don't use that word.
When I came to Sweden, and so you have an East African element in Sweden. The parents came over and they had children here. And then you also see the same thing with West Africans. They came here and then they have children here. That next generation, they're using this word against each other.
Oh yeah, they don't have an understanding of it.
Right.
They just get it from music.
Get it from music, from US culture, and they're using it. Well, you weren't grown up with this word. Why are you using it for? Yeah, because it's in the environment around you. So let's stop using those words against each other. Why should a white person not call us a nigger? If we're using that derogatory word between us, okay, for them it's normal. Okay, well, I call you the same thing. So I saw that happen a few times when I came to Sweden the first time, that people of mixed race and blacks were calling each other this word. So one time a white guy came up to me and called it to me. I said, listen, don't ever say that to me again. Yeah, but I heard all the other guys calling it between themselves. Yeah, I've told them also. He said, okay, sorry. So because he thought it was normal, he used it. When I told him that, he realized, okay, it was wrong. So but he questioned me, well, why are they doing it? I said, yeah, because they have been indoctrinated into that system that it's okay, but it's not okay. And they never heard it growing up. They're influenced by music and what goes on in TV and the movies and stuff like that. So unless we stop internally making it worse for ourselves, why externally should we be taken seriously? So these are all factors. We must fix our own house first. Yeah, inside and out. So when we go out there now, people see a positive image of us, not a negative image of us, basically. And then we can make inroads in society. You're going to get black cops, you're going to get black firemen, you're going to get black doctors. We have all this. I mean, we have so many great role models in every field: medicine, science, discovery, inventions, sport. I mean, even in the field I'm pretty well known in health and fitness, there are no black people working in the gyms. There's no black people as managers in gyms in Sweden. Yet the greatest stars in health, fitness and sport are black. Serena Williams, Usain Bolt. But why are we not seen in this? This is our area of dominance, so to speak. We're not seen. So it's a travesty, actually, that white society needs to understand that black people have a lot to offer which all it will do is boost the economy. You have less people unemployed. You have black people being productive, working, paying their taxes, buying houses, buying all the consumer goods that are necessary to boost the economy. So the economy grows, the country grows, because you have this this standard of where we are now rising, and then of course that's going to have an impact on the economy of the country. Employment comes, or rather unemployment comes down. More black businesses, so it means that there's more wealth coming into the country, more people being employed again. The next generation are now going to have access to more things and have positive role models, so there'll be less crime on the streets. Where is the most crime today in Sweden? Is it in the rich white areas?
No, it's definitely.
It's in the so-called ghettos.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's happened. The ghetto was an experiment that was done in the Second World War. They put Jews together, called concentration camps, but in ghettos in one place.
Yeah.
So you put people together with limited resources, limited access to things, and you see what happens. And of course, it's like an explosion. People are fighting over what they can get. So they know what a ghetto is. They know what it is, but it's still evident today. We still put people in ghettos. We know that it's going to be a clash of all religion, culture, ethnic groups who are in the area. They're going to clash, they're going to fight, it's going to breed crime and violence. So why do that when you know it's going to happen? Is it done on purpose?
That's a good question.
Because you know it's going to happen. So it's done on purpose to, again, keep us down. So we have to fight to come out of it. Some fight for it the wrong way, some fight for a few small percent, fight for it the right way. So the most crime is done in those areas. So it's to be common sense to say, okay, let's open up this area, let's give them more resources, let's make it more accessible for them to get jobs so they can have what we have. So we have less crime and more jobs, and more people employed, more people with better education. The rate of black people that drop out of school and don't go to university is like this. I mean, it's huge. Do you know that 80% of black kids do not go onto university or don't graduate from university, who do go? That's so where you stop now. So we stop because now we must get a job, we must provide for our family, we must like get income coming in because we want to have what you have. So we don't have the system in place for us to continue our education, because now we've got to go and work. Or we feel we must go and work to provide for our family, get a good standard of living, to buy good food. Yeah. What do you find in all the worst areas? You find the worst food. You find the worst branding of food. You find, I won't even say the name, actually, that'd be the wrong thing to say, but you don't find the good stores. You find the bad food stores, the ones that are not so good in quality. But you don't find those in the white, suburban, rich areas. So there's this mental gap that is seen if you just look around. The worst housing is in those areas. The worst schools are in those areas where most black people, most minority ethnic groups are. So you find the worst schools, the worst hospitals, the worst housing, and you expect us to shine.
Maybe that's the point, so that you don't shine.
So,
but now, I mean,
if that is the point, okay, let's say that's the point. Let's say, okay, this is what we're given. This is what we are being allocated. So what can we do to make the best out of it? Well, we have to go back into our history. So we must study our own history. If they did it in slavery times, well, it was much worse. In fact, they were told, the white slave owners, excuse me for going on, but the white slave owners, they will get together when they were starting the slave trade and, okay, how are we going to do with all these black people? What should we do? So there was a rule in place. It was, okay, teach them how to dance, teach them how to play our instruments, teach them how to dress like us, teach them how to cook like us. But one thing don't do. Don't teach them how to read or write. Once you can read and write, you can now find that information for yourself because you have knowledge.
yeah.
Okay. So if you suppress a group of people by not allowing them to read or write, they are ignorant. They will believe everything you say. Okay. So we have to start. How do we get out of that situation? Well, we started to read, learn how to read. If a white person taught a black person how to read, that person was cut off, killed, as well as the black person, obviously, for having the audacity to want to read. Okay. So now we don't have that system, but we survived in that system. This is how strong we are. We survived in that system of slavery, and that, well, we were treated like worse than animals. They looked after the animals better than what they did us. So we survived and grew under that. There's no excuse for us not to survive and grow today. We can survive and grow under the worst conditions, worse than what you treat your own pig. So today, we don't have that type of situation. So today we can also grow, despite what we have, worse housing, worse schools, worse hospitals, blah, blah, blah. We can still survive and grow. So we have to...
We don't want to just survive. So is there hope for actually reaching that equality?
Survive first, must survive first and grow.
We've been surviving for long, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah. So now it's time for us to grow. We have access. No one can say, I think every kid today, black kid that has an iPhone or some type of phone, search, investigate who you are. Don't just take what you know, do the extra. Do the extra, like these people, they did the extra. You're not given the resources, go and get it. It's there for you. You have it on your phone. Just Google it. Yeah. Search for yourself. Go to the library, back to the library. Yeah. Read books. Find positive role models. Search, okay, who, if it's medicine you want to study, go and look about Dr. Ben Carson, the first person to separate twins that were joined together. He's a black man. Go and read about him. You want a role model about, for medicine, go and check him out. If you want to invent something, check out the guys I mentioned before. Granville T. Woods, Garrett Morgan, Benjamin Banneker, Lewis Latimer. Yeah? Go and search these guys out and read about them. You want to do literature, go and read about Maya Angelou, Alexander Dumas. Sport, you have Usain Bolt, Serena Williams. Business, you have T.D. Jakes and all these kind of guys. Politician, like Sandy said, you have Barack Obama. So there's no reason why you should not excel today as a black person. Take what you can get and then go and search for yourself more. So learn European history. You must know that. It's evident, it's necessary to learn it, but learn also African history. Learn the history of the struggle in the US. Learn the history of the struggle in South Africa. Learn what your people have been through so you can take empowerment from that. Say, if they did it, so can we, so can I. So that's where we must start with ourselves. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you talk about education, don't you think that the schools or the education system has a part to play in this?
Oh, but tremendously.
Yeah.
It's the root of everything.
Yeah, because I mean everyone can Google about everything.
Exactly.
But isn't it about also including all races in history and education?
Exactly. That's what education is there for, basically. You know, that's the great thing about research. You should have the different aspects from all areas. So what we have been given, we've been given the illusion of inclusion. They say that we have been included in all this information, but it's just the illusion of it. We haven't been included in this wealth equality. We're still at the bottom of the pit. 400 years later, coming out of slavery.
That's a shame.
So you have such things as like the Emancipation Proclamation that Abraham Lincoln gave to the slave when he freed the slave, so to speak, in 1800s after American Civil War. But 200 years, well, 150, 160 years later, we're still in slavery, mental slavery, wealth slavery, in terms of the balance of power, balance of wealth. So we've been given the illusion of inclusion through social integration and such things as this, but it's not actually reality. No. So education-wise, again, it's the same thing. Who are teaching our kids? Are they white or are they black? What color are they?
And also what material is being taught.
What material is being taught.
But before we close up, I just want you to talk about maybe other measures that can be taken to get there.
It's got to start with education.
Yeah, got to start with education, but what more can be done? Because we've just watched 2 videos where some were talking about it starts from home and what you teach your children. Someone else said maybe it's worth not making everything such a major issue by dwelling on how different we are.
But we definitely are different.
Yeah, we are different, but not dwelling on it the whole time, but actually seeing about what common grounds do we have. So
I mean, parents obviously have a role to play.
Yeah.
Obviously that they are also educators. So it's their responsibility to educate their kids, but if the parents don't know,
The parents cannot find out?
Well, the parents can find out.
Because, of course, everything starts from home. Because most of the prejudices and most of the racism, like you said, no one's born racist.
No.
But you're taught. And if you have, like you said, you had a really good upbringing, so you didn't have an inferiority complex. Yeah. So it always starts at home.
It starts at home, but you know, that because of the way the system is today, most parents don't have the time to educate their kids. Most parents obviously don't have even the thought to even do this.
So they shouldn't take the responsibility.
They should take the responsibility, but they need to be educated into that also. You see my point?
Yeah.
Because obviously, if you don't have the education yourself, how you can educate your kids? Yes, there must be a foundation for something. So that's what I'm saying. Yes, of course, the parents have responsibility, but then the parents must know what they're going to talk about to educate the children. Otherwise, again, it's going to be information that is maybe confusing, or they don't know where to start from. So it's got to be that root. Education of the parents, educate the kids, education in school, so everyone gets even perspective on different cultures. So there's not this, you know, this balance, superiority, inferiority, where you're not looking up or not looking down. Everyone is treated as equals, even though we are different. Everyone is embraced for their differences, because there's some things that we can learn from each other and build together, so we become more productive as a people. So you have someone in the US called Jane Elliott. She actually is a white civil rights activist. She walked with Dr. King during the 60s. She gave a seminar one time to a bunch of white suburban society, basically. She asked them the question at the beginning of her seminar. She said, would you like to be treated the same way a black person is treated? Raise your hands. No one raised their hands. She asked the question again, just in case you don't understand me. Would any of you people here, about 4,000 or 5,000 white people, would any of you people here like to be treated the same way a black person is treated? No one raised their hand. The whole room was quiet. The whole auditorium was silent. You could hear a pin drop. She said, shame on you all. So you know what's going on. Right. But as long as it doesn't affect you, you don't care. But you know what's going on. So how can you now claim that you're not racist?
Wow.
When you know what's going on, you know it's wrong because you don't want to be treated the same way, you just allow it to be. And that for me is how it is today right now. People know what's going on, but they don't want to do anything about it because it doesn't affect them. My kids are cool. My area, my neighborhood's cool. I'm fine. I got my good job. My children got a good education. So, hey, you guys, you fend for yourself. It's how it is. It's up to you. You do it. That's the way it is. So people don't care. So you have to educate people into this enlightenment. So do we want to have a better, so for example, people say there's only one race, the human race. Yes. In paradise, yes, you could say like that.
In
but
retrospect,
it is one race. But at the same time, why do we have this struggle for in the races then? Because we're not seeing the same.
Usually someone who would say that is because they're not in the inferiority part of it.
Exactly.
But thank you so much
for
wow, you have such a great insight on all this. And it's really good that you were able to come and share everything.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
So thank you, viewers, for watching this program on racial equality. I'm sure it's brought up so many thoughts and ideas from different perspectives, and we hope that we can come to a place where there will be racial equality and the world can be a better place. So if you have any thoughts, any reflections, just tweet us or Facebook us, and let's just hear what you have to say, and let's see how we can move forward to making the world a better place.